There's a country where ancient monks chose to live on the tops of vertical rock pillars, not by climbing them, but by being hauled up in rope nets. Where a single volcanic eruption 3,600 years ago may have destroyed an entire Bronze Age civilization and given birth to the legend of Atlantis. And where, on one hidden beach, a smuggler's shipwreck has sat rusting in turquoise water for over 40 years and no one has moved it. That place is Greece. Few countries carry this much weight in so little space. Greece is smaller than the state of Alabama, and yet within its borders you will find the ruins of the civilization that invented democracy, philosophy, and the Olympic Games. You'll find a volcanic island so beautiful that photographers have been trying and failing to do it justice for a century. And you'll find places so remote, so quiet, that time genuinely seems to slow down. This is that journey. Before we go, a few things worth knowing. Greece has more archaeological museums than any other country on Earth, over 250 of them. The Acropolis has been standing for 2,500 years, and its marble still carries the original chisel marks of craftsmen who were alive when Socrates walked the streets below it. Santorini is not actually an island, it's the rim of a submerged supervolcano. The Caldera in the center is 400 meters deep. Greece has 6,000 islands. Only 227 are inhabited. And the Greek coastline, if you unrolled it completely, would stretch halfway around the equator. Now, let's explore the places that make Greece one of the most extraordinary landscapes on Earth. Imagine standing in the middle of a city of 4 million people. Highways, apartment blocks, coffee shops on every corner, and directly above you, on a limestone plateau 150 meters high, sits a building that was already ancient when Julius Caesar was born. That is the first thing Athens does to you. It makes you feel the weight of time. The Acropolis doesn't announce itself immediately. You catch it in glimpses first, between apartment buildings, above a line of washing, through a gap in the orange trees. And then you climb. The path up the sacred rock is worn smooth by 2,500 years of feet. And on a summer morning with the lights still low and the city not yet fully awake, there are moments where the centuries genuinely blur. The Parthenon itself is not what you expect. It is larger and quieter, 8 columns wide, 17 columns long, built without a single straight line. Every surface on the building is ever so slightly curved, designed to correct for optical illusion. The ancient Greeks understood perspective well enough to bend marble to account for it. What the Acropolis asks of you, standing up there, wind off the Aegean, modern Athens sprawling in every direction below, is a question that Greece will keep asking throughout this journey. What do we owe the past? Not in a heavy academic sense, more intimate than that. These stones were dragged here by hand, shaped by people who had names, families, opinions, people who argued and laughed and had bad days. And yet, what they left behind has outlasted every empire that came after them. Athens, in the end, is not a city built around ruins. It's a city built beneath them. There is a difference. The further north you drive from Athens, the quieter the landscape becomes. Fewer tourists, more sky. And somewhere in central Greece, the earth itself begins to do something extraordinary. There are places on Earth that look like they were designed by someone with no interest in moderation. Meteora is one of them. 60 million years ago, a prehistoric seabed folded and buckled under pressure, pushing enormous sandstone formations straight up out of the Thessaly plain. The result is a forest of vertical rock pillars, some over 400 meters tall, rising from a flat valley floor with no warning, no preamble. And on top of them, somehow, improbably, there are monasteries. 6 of them remain active today. They were built between the 14th and 16th centuries by Eastern Orthodox monks who were looking, quite deliberately, for the most unreachable places they could find. For centuries, the only way up was by rope ladder or wooden net. Supplies, people, the occasional visiting bishop, all hauled up by hand, hundreds of meters above the ground. When asked how often the ropes were replaced, one monk reportedly answered, "When God wills it." It is, in every sense of the word, otherworldly. Meteora asks the same question the Acropolis asked, but from a more extreme angle. The Acropolis was built to be seen. These monasteries were built to be hidden. They represent 2 entirely different answers to the question of how a person or a civilization should relate to the world below. One reaches toward power, the other climbs away from it. Eventually, inevitably, Greece pulls you toward the sea.
Here is what Santorini actually is. Around 1600 BCE, a volcano erupted here with a force estimated at 4 to 7 times more powerful than Krakatoa. The explosion was so massive it may have triggered tsunamis that reached as far as Egypt. The island's center collapsed into the sea, leaving behind a ring of cliffs, a caldera that drops nearly 400 meters to the water. What remained became the islands of Santorini and Thracia. The white and blue is real, but it isn't decorative, it's functional. White walls reflect the relentless summer heat. Blue domes match the volcanic paint that was cheap and locally available. The famous aesthetic of Santorini was built from practicality, not Instagram. Walk down to Parisa Beach on the island's eastern side, and the sand is black, not dark gray, black, the color of the volcanic rock ground down by centuries of waves. The contrast against the blue-green water is disorienting in the best possible way. The famous Santorini sunset is not a cliché. It earns its reputation. Something about the volcanic dust still suspended in the atmosphere. Something about the way the caldera catches the last light. The colors don't fade at dusk here. They detonate. From here, we head west to a beach that most people only know from photographs and a shipwreck with a stranger story than the island it sits on. Navagio Beach cannot be reached by land. The cove is sealed on 3 sides by sheer limestone cliffs between 100 and 200 meters high. The only way in is by boat from the sea, through an opening in the rock face so narrow that on rough days it's impassable. Inside, white pebbles so bright they look lit from below, water the color of a swimming pool, and a rusting ship beached diagonally in the shallows. The ship is the MV Panagiotis. In 1980, she ran aground here during a storm, while allegedly smuggling cigarettes and other contraband. The crew was rescued.
The ship was not. In the decades since, no one has arranged to move her. The Greek government, at various points, declared the wreck a protected monument. So, there she sits, salt-eaten, beautiful, slowly becoming part of the landscape. The interior of the island is green and tangled, full of olive groves and vineyards and roads that don't lead anywhere particular. At Garacus Beach on the southern tip, loggerhead sea turtles, Crete, come ashore at night to lay their eggs in the sand. They have been doing this for millions of years. The beach is protected now. No umbrellas, no sunbeds, no artificial lights after dark. In the morning, all that's left are tracks. Further south, the largest island in the Ionian chain hides a landscape that manages to be simultaneously the most dramatic and the most gentle in all of Greece.
Crete is the largest Greek island. It is also the birthplace of Europe's first advanced civilization, the Minoans, who built elaborate palace complexes with running water and drainage systems 4,000 years ago. Their script, Linear A, has never been fully deciphered. We still do not know exactly what language they spoke. The Samaria Gorge is 16 kilometers long, carved by a river through the White Mountains over millions of years. At its narrowest point, the Iron Gates, the walls close in to just 3 meters wide and rise 300 meters on either side. The light that reaches the bottom is thin and white, like something strained through gauze. Drive northwest and the island changes entirely. Balos Lagoon sits at the far tip of the Gromvusa Peninsula, accessible by boat or a steep 45-minute walk. The water here is so shallow and so clear it appears to glow. Crete has been occupied by Minoans, Mycenaeans, Romans, Byzantines, Arabs, Venetians, and Ottomans. Its architecture is a physical archive of conquest. In Chania's old harbor, a Venetian lighthouse stands beside a mosque converted from a cathedral converted from an older church. 3 religions in one building. The whole island is like that. There is one more island, the greenest one, the one Homer himself may have called home.
Corfu is where this journey ends, and it feels right that it does. Every other place in Greece has felt ancient in a specific way, defined by one civilization, one era, one particular weight. Corfu contains all of them at once, layered without apology. Byzantine fortresses, Venetian bell towers, Napoleonic arcades, British cricket grounds, and above it all, the oldest olive trees in the world, some planted by the Venetians in the 15th century, still producing fruit. At Poliokastritsa, on the island's western coast, the limestone cliffs fold down into a series of small coves. The water is so clear that from above you can watch fish moving across the sand 20 meters below. A monastery sits on the headland, white walls and orange-tiled roof. Standing here, looking out over the Ionian, Watching the afternoon light move across the water in slow golden sheets, it feels plausible. It feels earned. That is what Greece does. It makes the mythological feel possible. It makes the ancient feel present. And in doing so, it makes you feel, for a moment, like the modern world is the one that's temporary. In Greece, the ancient and the urgent live side by side, and the tension between them is never resolved. That's not a flaw. That's the point. The Parthenon has been standing for 2,500 years. Tourists photograph it on their phones. The Navagio shipwreck keeps rusting. The loggerhead turtles keep returning to Gerakis Beach, as they have since before humans arrived to photograph them. The monks at Meteora still haul supplies up the rock by hand. Greece does not try to reconcile its past with its present. It simply holds them both, with the calm of a place that has outlasted every empire that ever tried to possess it. And maybe that's the most extraordinary thing about it. Not the ruins, not the beaches, not the volcanic sunsets or the crystal coves. It's the patience. If this journey sparked something in you, subscribe for more films from the world's most extraordinary landscapes. Every week, a new place. Every place, a new question worth asking. And tell me in the comments, which would you choose first? The silence of Meteora at dawn, or the sea at Paleokastritsa as the light goes gold? I genuinely want to know.